today's session of the Machine Learning Copy Seminar. So Laura Ruusalainen is traveling today, so I'm vice chairing. I suppose you remember I'm with the other chairman from the other side. So today we have a great pleasure of having an extremely timely application area. I suppose that's what we should call your talk today, even though of course it is really important as such as we know. Hanna Tuomisto, professor from the Sustainability Science Center of the University of Helsinki. Welcome.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so I think that today my talk is something different than what you usually see. So really the aim is to introduce what I do and then discuss whether AI or machine learning could be used to help to achieve the targets that I'm planning in the research. And I will start with an introduction, and then after that we will move on to this research plan and to discuss more about what I'm planning to do. But so the topic in general is environmental impacts of novel food production technologies. So the aim is in my research group is to estimate whether novel food production technologies could help with reducing environmental impacts and improving sustainability of food systems. And yeah, so I'm leading the Future Sustainable Food Systems at the University of Helsinki at the Helsinki Institute of Sustainability Science, and we are based in Viikki at the Department of Agricultural Sciences. And I will start with a short introduction as to the sustainability issues that we are facing. So many of you have probably heard about the planetary boundaries, and in this figure you can see these planetary boundaries and then the contribution of agriculture to these boundaries. So this figure basically illustrates that agriculture is the main contributor to many of these planetary boundaries, biodiversity losses, land use change, freshwater use, phosphorus and nitrogen flows, and then for climate change this is only agriculture, so it's about 10%, but then if we look at food systems in general, it's about 20 to 30%. And most of these environmental issues are caused by livestock production, and here you can see the carbon footprint of different foods, and especially ruminants, beef has and lamb have high carbon footprint, and here you can also see where the emissions are coming from. So land use change, so converting land from forest to agricultural land is one of the main contributors to greenhouse gas emissions, but then also the methane emissions from ruminants enteric fermentation process is another large one. And then plant-based foods in general have substantially lower carbon footprint compared to livestock products. And the same applies to other environmental impact categories. So here also land use, acidification, eutrophication, and water scarcity, water use. So here also in general plants have a lower impact compared to livestock products. And this is an interesting paper, this EAT Lancet commission that came out last year. So here they looked at different scenarios, how we could reach the targets by 2050 to be within the planetary boundaries. And this is actually quite worrying figure, because here they looked at the changes in the production and reduction in food waste and changes in the diets. And even their best case scenario didn't reach the targets for all planetary boundaries, so the nitrogen application, phosphorus application, and biodiversity loss were still in the yellow zone. So then another issue that is causing more challenges to reach the sustainable food security in the future is of course that climate change and other environmental changes are also affecting agriculture. So this figure shows the impact of climate change on crop yields by 2050. And here you can see that especially in the areas where people are already suffering from hunger, the crop yields have been projected to decrease most. And so then the problem is that we would need to develop our food systems so that they would be capable of adapting to these environmental changes, but also reduce the pressure to environmental changes. And so in my research group, our focus is really in estimating the potential of novel technologies, helping with improving the sustainability of food systems. And when I talk about novel technologies, these are the ones that we are mainly looking at the moment. So vertical farming, which means producing plants in multiple layers by using LED lights, and so they are in closed conditions, so it's possible to control the emissions and the temperature and the availability of nutrients. Then we have cell cultured foods, which mean using cell culturing technologies for producing foods. I will explain in a little bit more. Then insects and plant-based meat substitutes. And so cellular agriculture, which as a term might be new for many, it really means using cell culturing technologies familiar from medical field for producing agricultural products. And this cellular agriculture has been divided to two different groups. So cellular products, which consist of the actual cells that have been cultured, for example, cultured meat, leather, fur, wood, and offal. And acellular products, which are products that are synthesized by microbes, so the cells produced a product, and the cell itself that has been cultured is not used for the product, but the substance that they produce are used. And examples are casein, which is milk protein, gelatin, vanillin, omega-3 fatty acid, and ovalbumin. And so a couple of familiar cellular agricultural products that have been available already longer time are cyanobacteria, which is spirulina. It's a bacteria that blue-green algae as well, which is produced for food supplement. And then mycoprotein, the trade name is corn. It's fungus, microfungus found from soil, which is also used for as a food product. And if we look at a little bit closer how cultured meat is produced, so it's really produced by taking cells from a livestock and then first multiplying these stem cells, and then they are differentiated to muscle cells and cultivated in this kind of bioreactors in nutrition medium, and then depending on how long the process will take, the final product is at the moment nobody is really making these kind of steaks, but in theory it could be possible, but most likely or most often it's just loose cells that could be used as a food ingredient. This is still in the development stage and will probably take some time before they come to the markets, the first products. But then something that might be available in the supermarket sooner is microbial protein. This is a company called Solar Foods that is producing this kind of protein. So this is microbe, it's a bacteria that doesn't require any source of sugar, but it's able to use carbon from CO2 and hydrogen from water molecule, which is cut with electrolysis process, and then also it requires some nutrients. But the interesting thing with this product is that the land use is really low because there is no need for agriculture crop. And also the protein content is high, and it includes all the essential amino acids that human needs. And then also VTT in Finland is developing interesting cellular agriculture products. So they use micro fungi to synthesize ovalbumin, and they also produce casein. So the ovalbumin can be used to replace egg albumin in food industry, and then casein milk proteins. So these are also quite well developed and can be in the supermarkets quite soon. And now if we look at the carbon footprint of some novel foods, so this one, my research group is currently carrying out life cycle assessments for these novel proteins that I presented, but I cannot show the results yet. But here we have cultured meat, so the carbon footprint of cultured meat is it actually depends quite a lot on the source of energy, because at the moment the estimates show that the energy use is quite high. So then if it's fossil-based energy, then also the emissions are higher. But then if low emission energy sources are used, then it can be lower than this. But there is lots of uncertainty for that. But then there are different types of algae. Some of them have also quite high carbon footprint, also due to the energy requirements in the bioreactors. And but our estimates of these new microbial proteins are that they would be quite the emissions quite low, close to the plant-based proteins. And then land use is also something that is important to consider, because then actually, especially for these energy-consuming novel food production systems, if they have lower land use, it's not necessarily that bad that the energy use is high, because some of this land area that could be reduced from livestock production might be possible to use for producing energy. But and then actually similar case is for these vertical farming systems. So they have really high use of energy, but then depending on what's the source of energy, that has a huge impact on the carbon footprint. And so that's why it's important to move beyond this kind of product-based assessments that are currently mostly used. And now my research group is moving towards this kind of consequential assessments, where we consider these kind of issues and land use change, what happens if we replace livestock production with plant-based or these novel proteins, how the land would be used. Would we convert that land to forests that would mitigate more carbon, or would we use it for generating energy? Then also, where would the energy come from for these bioreactors? Like, should we, because then most of these technology developers, they say that they would use renewable energy, but what is the capacity of that renewable energy? After all, is there enough solar energy generation capacity for everybody? how do we need to change the diets? So if we introduce these novel proteins, replace beef with some new products, what else do we need to do change in the diet in order to obtain all the nutrients that we need? And also, how do we produce all the other commodities that are produced by livestock? So livestock, of course, produces a lot of other products than only food. So then how would we produce leather and pet food and all the chemicals that are made from fat, for instance? So then what we are aiming at is to look at this whole picture in a level of the whole world, or some maybe starting with just from some country like Finland, and looking at different scenarios. And of course we need to use the food system approach, so then also consider the feasibility, like what the consumers, like how much consumers are willing to change diets or adopt these novel technologies. And of course there are issues also related to the policies and interventions, the legislation, etc. So, and here is my research group that we are all, and one of them is here as well, Hanna. And so hopefully we are getting some interesting results in the near future. And that was the end of the public part.